Sophie got up late and wandered into the kitchen of her small flat. She remembered how excited she had been when she moved there. The big city seemed to hold so many possibilities that her hometown lacked. But it had been hard. She got on well enough with the people at work, but none of them had become real friends. The working day was just too busy to have a real conversation. Lunchtimes were no better. Many preferred to eat away from the office, going to a local cafe or the park. Sophie had been invited a few times, but she always felt like an outsider. They were inviting her to join them because they felt they should, rather than because they wanted to. After a few weeks, she had found a bench in a garden tucked away from the crowds where she ate alone. Weekdays weren't so bad, but the weekends dragged. Every few months she would go home to see her parents and meet up with her old friends, but being so far away meant she was also slowly losing touch with them and what was happening with their lives. She sat at the kitchen table and looked out at the rooftops, wondering how she was going to get through 2 whole days of nothing. Nowhere to go and no one to talk to. Well, she could have a shower and dress. That would kill an hour. She pushed the kitchen window open to let some air in and went off to the bathroom. When she returned, a cat was sitting on the inside kitchen windowsill. It had begun to rain outside, so Sophie assumed it must have looked for the nearest place to shelter. "Hello, puss!" She tentatively put out her hand and it let her stroke it. "Do you live around here?" The cat didn't reply, but was happy to be stroked for now. "I wonder if you're hungry?" Sophie didn't have much experience with cats, but knew they were always keen to be fed, so she opened a tin of tuna and put it on the sill in a saucer. "Don't tell your owner." Sophie tapped the side of her nose conspiratorially. "Keep this between us, shall we?" The cat sniffed the tuna, found it acceptable, and began to eat. It returned several times over the next week. It would stay an hour or so, reduce Sophie's supply of tuna, and then disappear again. It didn't have a collar, and even though Sophie tried to see where it went, she would soon lose sight of it as it crossed the rooftops. The garden where Sophie ate her lunch was a small square of earth between several buildings. An afterthought, a patch of ground no one knew what to do with. There was a bench, a couple of small trees and some bushes, but it was mostly overshadowed by the surrounding buildings. That was probably why Sophie had it to herself most of the time. There were many better places to sit in the park or down by the river, where there were benches with nice views and flower beds to look at. A man came in. At first Sophie thought he was passing through, but he looked puzzled, as if he might have lost something. He came over to where Sophie was sitting and asked, "You haven't seen a cat, have you?" No." He was still looking around as he spoke. "I was sure I saw him come this way." Sophie could see his concern. "I'm sure he'll come home when he's ready. Cats are like that." The man shrugged and looked at Sophie properly. "It's not technically my cat. It comes and visits pretty regularly, but I don't know who actually owns it." Sophie smiled. "I have one of those. I wouldn't be surprised if half the neighborhood is feeding it." "Yes," the man agreed. "It was just that he was such a long way from where I live. Sorry to disturb you." "That's okay. I hope your cat finds its way home." It was nice that he cared about the cat. She thought you could tell a lot about a person by the way they treated animals. That evening, she told her feline visitor about the man. He had a kind smile too, but the cat was more interested in having his ears rubbed than in Sophie's encounter. The next time the cat came, he had a collar. Sophie thought his real owner must have bought it for him. The collar had a tiny barrel attached. Perhaps it would contain an address, but instead it held a note written on a minuscule bit of paper. To owner, saw cat in city centre, visits Farnham, Stanley RD. There wasn't room for anything else. Stanley Road was only a few streets over from where Sophie lived. It couldn't be the same man, surely? There was only one way to find out. Write a note of her own. "Are you man who asked about cat on Tuesday lunch?" Sophie. It was very small writing. She hoped he would be able to read it. What would be the chances of it being the same man? Probably not good, but she had nothing to lose by asking. If it wasn't him, whoever got the note wouldn't know who she was or where she lived. So if it wasn't him, they might be a bit confused, but that was all. There were butterflies in her stomach as she left the office and went to her bench. Sitting there, she tried to quell her expectations. It probably wouldn't be him. If it were, he might think she was mad and not come. Or worse, he wouldn't remember her at all. Hello. He had come in from the opposite direction from before, and Sophie hadn't seen him. Oh, it was you. I wondered. I didn't. She stood, realizing she must be making herself look like a complete fool. He held out his hand. Jack. They shook hands. Sophia. He reached into his pocket and took out her note. I know. I couldn't quite believe it when the cat came back with your note. What are the chances? Not only did he have a kind smile, thought Sophie, he had a kind face. It must be fate. He grinned. Yes, I bought my lunch, I thought, if you don't mind. Please, sit. She moved her lunchbox to give him room, and they sat together talking about the cat and how they had both come to the city for work and didn't have many friends. I hope, he said as they collected their things, getting ready to return to work. I hope you wouldn't mind if I had my lunch with you tomorrow. Say if you... No. She interrupted him. That would be great. The cat licked his paws, watching from his vantage point on a ledge. Humans were strange creatures, he thought. Not like cats. When you adopted a human as a pet, you had to understand that they didn't always know what was good for them, so they often needed a push in the right direction. He was sure that with a bit of work, he could have these two trained in no time.